Okay, that's such a great question. So, what I do is actually, let me kind of back up a little bit here and give you some context. So, back in the year 2000, ooh, you know I'm old, right? I started working for a tech company, and yes, the year 2000. I'm that old, and I was working in a call center for about a year and a half or 2 years in that same company. Now I'm gonna give you all the real story. So I actually quit after about a year and a half, and I moved from Columbus, Ohio. I'm originally born and raised in Columbus, Ohio, and I moved to Richmond, Virginia, and I started working at a travel insurance company in Richmond, Virginia. They weren't paying that much money, but it was a job, and I moved out here with my godmother and godfather, and met a lot of great people. Probably about 6 months in, the same company had an opening. The same company I was working with in Ohio, in Richmond, Virginia, had an opening, and I got the job, and so I joined the company again. Fast forward, I'm kind of jumping around here. I spent 22 years with that company, that technology company, and I spent a majority of my time in learning and development. So I am a total introvert, but a majority of my job for about, like 16, 17, 16, 17 years there at that company was me standing in front of people talking. And I would, like, for 5 years I was doing I was doing leadership development. And so I would travel around. I had my states, and my states were California, Florida, Arizona, North Carolina, South Carolina. I'm trying to think of what else. I think that was it. So those were my states that I was responsible for, and I would set up classes for just for leaders. So you had to like lead people. So you had to have a team of people that you led within this technology company. I would set up um, different classes like Franklin Covey or emotional intelligence, unconscious bias. This is before DEI was a cuss word. And I would set up these classes, and it was like open enrollment. So if you were a leader, you would sign up for, you had to do 2 classes a year, and you would come to my classes, and I would teach. And most of the classes were 1 day classes. Some were 2 day classes. I think the seven habits of highly effective people was a 2 day class, but most of the classes were a 1 day class. And then I had unconscious bias or leading change. It's a change management class I used to teach, was a half a day. So I would just set up classes. Oh, and Virginia was another area, another place that was mine, because I did a lot in Northern Virginia, where all the where the tech hub is. Where, like, I think it's like something crazy, like 80% of the world's internet goes through Northern Virginia, something crazy like that. But I was in that area teaching classes to the tech gurus. But there were leadership development classes. And then after that, I did this big, my organization, we had like about 120,000 employees globally. And I got on this project. Some of the leaders were on the change management team, and I've always wanted to do more change management. I did some of the change management classes, teaching leaders about change management, like how do you help people prepare their minds for change, and help them be more agile and be able to shift when organizations need to be more dynamic nowadays, right? Or everything's not static like it was before. Let's say, like, if you think back to like 1950s, you came to work, you went to your little section in the factory and you did the same thing over and over again all day, right? Well, that's not the way things work today. As organizations and our jobs are usually very dynamic. We do different things and we actually have to think. And so my job was to help employees. When I ended up moving to the change management department, org effectiveness. I was an org effectiveness manager at the same company, and so I did that for about a year. As with a lot of big organizations, they started like downsizing and trying to trim fat or whatever. And my department got cut after about a year of me being in that department. I had opportunities to stay with the company that I was with for 22 years. But this wasn't the first time that I've been in a situation where I was a part of a department that was being trimmed down. So because I had been through that like 2 or 3 other times prior, I always stayed with the company because I was a strong employee. Like I was a hard worker and I had a pretty extensive resume within the organization and I could adjust. So I usually stay with the organization and I had opportunities that I could have took within the company and stayed there and moved to like a different department and did something different or went back to my old department. But it was time to go. So oddly enough, I got a call. This is so crazy how God works, because I got a phone call from a person who I mentioned I did leadership development, right? And so like you have Franklin Covey, we had the emotional intelligence vendor, we had Fierce Conversations was another vendor that I worked with. And so you had these vendors that would come in and train the trainers on how to train their courses. And one of the vendors they called me and they're like, I heard that your department was shut down. I remember you from 3 years ago when you facilitated our content. Are you willing to, leave your company, or are you trying to stay? So I was like, okay, I'm actually really ready to go. There were several other offers on the table, by the way, from some, like if I said the company names, you would know who they are, but there were 3 other offers on the table, 2 companies that you would know, and one is based out of DC. I'm not sure if you would know it or not, but I ended up going with the company that gave me the phone call because I was like, okay, this must be God. This person's called me out the blue, and not out the blue, but is kind of trying to get me to come over to the company. So I went to that organization, and I've been there for the last 3 years, and I do consulting. And again, if I told you some of the companies that I have worked with, you would absolutely know them. There's some entertainment companies, there's accounting companies, there's pharmaceutical companies, there's tech companies, there's telecom companies, and I'm missing other industries, but there's a ton of different companies that I work with. What I do is I go into the organization, I teach a class to teach them our framework or our methodology. And it's all about high performance, by the way. So we help people with how to expand their capacity, how to perform better, and smarter, and just work smarter. And it's tactical things, but then it's also the mindset that we get into. And that's the part that really intrigues me. And we call it the operating framework, but it's really about a mindset for an individual, and for a team, it's the overall culture of the team. It's like, what is the team's mindset, right? And so we get a chance, we do a session on that, and then after that, for the next 6 months, once a month, I'm meeting with that same group of 20 or 30 people, and on a group call for about an hour, hour and a half. And what we do is we they tell me how they're implementing what they learned from that day when I did the 1 day workshop, right? And so holding them accountable to make sure that they are actually implementing what we taught them. And then in addition to the group calls, in between every group call, I'm probably doing a one-on-one coaching session with them. Like, what are you doing? How are you implementing it as an individual? There are people who talk to me about very personal things in their lives, and they use the methodology that I teach them to help them in their personal lives, as well as their professional lives. So it's a very interesting job. We mostly work with leaders. A majority of my clients are, I'd say they're probably like at the director level, a majority of them. And some executives, some senior leaders, some CEOs. I just work with a lot of different people, but it's an honor to do what I do. And so actually tomorrow I'm headed out to work with one of the biggest accounting firms in the US or the globe. I don't know. In their what do you call it? I can't think of the word for it right now, but it's where you have different leaders who are identified as high potentials, and I can't, it's like almost like succession planning, but yeah, so I did a workshop for them. So we're going tomorrow for their graduation. So the cool thing about the workshops that I teach, I do the group calls and then I do the one-on-ones, but at the end they come back together. We do what's called a progress event or a readout, and then they read out to their leadership or their leaders, or like even like CEOs of like huge companies will come in and watch their presentations, and they'll talk about how what we taught them has helped them. So it's a really cool job, and so that's what I do professionally. I think I shared with you already. I'm from Columbus. Yes, you know that from the story. From Columbus, Ohio. I moved from Columbus. I moved to Richmond, Virginia, but I've lived in Richmond, Landover, Maryland, DC, Chicago. I was in Atlanta for like 3 or 4 years. I still have a house out there that I'm renting out, that I don't know when I'm probably gonna sell that joker in a minute. But now I'm back in Richmond, Virginia. I always seem to come back to Richmond, which is weird. But so anyways, that is what I could share with you personal. I don't know whatever else y'all want to know. Put it in the comments. I know I was kind of rambling, but I felt like I needed to make a video to talk a little bit about who am I. Now all of this, how it ties to the channel is, you got this introverted guy, right? And I am literally, my job is literally to stand in front of people all day and talk, or virtually be in front of them and talk, or do one-on-ones. So by the end of every day, I'm drained. In addition to all of this, I'm actually in school at Columbia, getting my PhD in organizational leadership. So I'm in that process right now, and it is kicking my butt. And then on top of that, I decide, you know what? As if life is not enough, there's not enough going on in your world. Why don't you start a YouTube channel? Yeah, so that's me. Yeah. So, um, anyways, I hope you found this to be interesting. I know I rambled a little bit. My apologies. Leave me a comment, hit the like button, help me out by liking the video, subscribing to the channel. And then, don't just subscribe and just watch me. Like, put something in the comments to let me know that you're watching, and how you feel about anything that I shared, so that way I can comment back. And you don't have to be a stranger, right? We're in this together as introverts. So anyways, I'm going to end the video here because I have to be up early in the morning. My flight leaves at like something like 7 a.m. tomorrow, and it's late, and I don't know why I'm still up doing this. But anyways, I'll talk to y'all a little bit later on in the next video.